All right. Dan Poffenberger here. I'm thrilled to be with all of you this morning. Hoping you can hear me okay. This presentation is a little bit unique in the sense that it's not necessarily a lot of how do you preserve memories. If I were to encourage you, I guess, to take three things from this. One, I hope you'll sit back and just sort of enjoy this crazy story that I'm about to tell, is most of which I believe is true. But then I would also, perhaps you'll learn some things about the different records that I show along with photos, and then use this to consider how you plan on preserving the memories of your ancestors. So I'll give a couple things away. Marriages, murders, and a Munchkin. There's one Munchkin. There are two murders, and you can keep track of how many marriages along the way. Now, the reason why I like to tell this story, it's the story of my grandma Poffenberger. She was born Vonia Elizabeth Robertson. And she is the reason why I'm a professional genealogist and why I'm working at FamilySearch. This is just a few pictures of Grandma, different points in my life. But when I returned from my Latter-day Saint mission, I bought their 72 Nova. When Kirsten and I were married, there's Grandma Poff here. And when I graduated from BYU on the lower right, and then the last time I was able to spend time with her in 2007 there. So she was a remarkable woman. When I was a boy, the first time I went to a family search center, she took me, I was 10 years old, and there was this building here in the lower right. It's now apartments. It's on 10th Street in San Diego. When I was a teenager, we moved to Spokane, Washington, and that's me, the homely looking boy there in the lower left. Pretty small and shy, actually. And then here's an example of a letter that's all in her handwriting. It's requesting a death certificate. This is, as you can see, June 27, 1979. She wrote my name and address on it. It was so that I would have the experience of receiving the death certificate. And after we moved to Spokane, she would come visit us for a week each year. And she would set aside one day for us to sit in the Spokane Public Library in the little genealogy room. And I had no idea what we were doing really back then, but I kind of joked that we used to look at the same census films every year. But it was just something that Grandma and I did together. When I was 14, I saved my money and went to a summer program at Brigham Young University called Especially for Youth, and found a way down. And about halfway through the week, instead of going to the different classes and things, I discovered the family history portion of the BYU library, and started calling my grandma collect on the phone and trying to get information, and spent the rest of the time there. So she has everything to do with why I love family history and have at least what is for me the greatest job in the world. But in order to understand Grandma and why she was amazing, it's important to understand her family history. Her mother was Mary Fleta Davis, or Fleta Mae Davis, as they called her. Here's a picture of Fleta Mae, one of only two that we have. Fleta was born in Nauvoo. Some of you will have heard of Nauvoo, especially you Latter-day Saints. But of course, this isn't Nauvoo, Illinois. This is Nauvoo, Alabama. And I'm guessing most people have not heard of Nauvoo, Alabama. It's basically about a block. But when they put the train station in, is what I was told, it reminded them of Nauvoo, Illinois, even though Nauvoo, Illinois has the Mississippi River next to it, and this one does not. But anyway, she was born in Nauvoo. When she was about 15, she could have been as young as 13, more likely 14, depending on which age you believe when. She married a fellow by the name of William Skates. It says both parties of age. One thing that I love is that they married across the county line from Walker County up into Winston County. Winston County has a unique distinction in Alabama state history in that when Alabama seceded from the Union prior to the Civil War, Winston County, which did not have a large enslaved population, during the war, they seceded from Alabama and referred to themselves as the Free State of Winston, actually. And there's a little memorial to that at the county courthouse in Winston County. This is Fleta May with her husband William Skates in the 1900 census in Walker County. Now, together they had one child, Clarence, and Clarence was known as Skeeter. This photo on the right, I had to save it actually. My mother, and it wasn't even my mom's side of the family, but Skeeter and Nellie, she thought they were both pretty homely looking, so she was gonna throw the picture away. So anyway, I was able to save it, and they had this one child together. Now, my grandma had always told me that William Skates was killed by a tornado. I'd heard my dad talk about William Skates being killed in a train accident. As it was, I was researching down at the Alabama State Archives and listening to Elizabeth Schoen Mills, the Advanced Research Methodology course, tell me that anytime you have an opportunity to look at a record, you should go through the entire record. And I was interested in this court docket that they had there in Montgomery. And as I'm going through this, I was thinking Skates or another name or two, Davis. And you'll notice I found this entry. This was in 1902. It's just a line item saying that there was a court case between Fleta Skates and W.N. Skates. Now, the crazy thing about actually even finding this record, if you'll pay attention, you might notice that this is an index for the K surnames, and Skates is not a K surname. So had I just gone to the S's, I wouldn't have found this record. As it is, I don't believe William Skates was killed by a train or by a tornado. I think they actually divorce. Is the situation there. So the next year, Fleta May, she gets married again to a fellow by the name of George Herbie. And they together have one daughter, Flora. She's born in 1906. Now, the story behind George Herbie, at least as it was told by Skeeter, Skeeter remembered as a little boy, he remembered running to Grandpa's house to get Grandpa because George was being abusive to Fleta May. And so this is the one that I expected to end in divorce. And that was the record that I was actually looking for, was for Fleta Herbie to George Herbie. And I had some concerns about finding the record. This is an image of the Walker County, Alabama courthouse around the year 1907, actually. When I was visiting in 2008, 2008, this is what the courthouse looked like then. So you might notice a big difference between the two. And that's because through time, there have been fires at the courthouse in 65, 77, 86, and importantly, one in 1932, which has done some damage to the records. And as I understand it, there have been a tornado or two as well. In any case, in that same court document, I was able to find the reference of Fleta Herbie to George Herbie in 1907. Now, As it happens, Flora, she went on to have a couple children of her own, Erlene and Fern, were their names. Fern was slow to grow, and at the age of 15, she was 24 pounds and 28 inches tall. And known as Johnnie Fern, the family had moved out to Pasadena, California. But there's a picture on the left of her at the Pan Pacific Exposition in San Diego in Balboa Park, standing next to a Shetland pony, to be clear. It's not a tall one, or hear her with a Great Dane. But at that time, they encouraged her to go into show business. And one of the things that she was a Munchkin in The Wizard of Oz. This is a postcard that she had given to me. Johnnie Fern was her stage name. This is her in the blue dress. She has a pink flower on her head, and she is right there next to Glinda, the Good Witch of the North, and Dorothy, of course. So, and Toto. And this was always a big deal in our family. Was when The Wizard of Oz was on back in the day. It was on once a year on TV, and so I remember it was such a big deal that Mom pulled us out of church so we could go home and make sure to catch The Wizard of Oz and not miss Johnnie Fern. As a boy, we went and visited her up in Hemet, where she lived, Hemet, California. We'd visit from San Diego. And so I wanted to show you a clip from The Wizard of Oz, but Warner Brothers declined the opportunity for me to share that with you. But she was in a couple other movies, and perhaps this is a better one because she's one of the few people who receives credits. This is a movie called The Terror of Tiny Town. Let's see. So the screen's coming up a little dark. But The Terror of Tiny Town was a movie made with short people, and she was given a singing part. She may sing about something slightly uncomfortable. Keep in mind, she's singing about courting and wooing rather than maybe the modern term for it. So we'll see how this goes here. Here she is coming down the stairs. Okay, apparently we have two going, so pardon me for that. Well, there you go. You get the idea. I didn't realize I had the two clips in there. I was given the choice of using one or the other, and thought I'd taken the one out. But there's a little bit of Johnnie Fern in action. If you're really curious to see the best version of the clip, this movie's in the public domain, and it's on YouTube, and you can find it for free. So, yeah. All right. Here's a few things. As I was preparing for this, actually kind of a fun little find that I had. I was cleaning up some books and things at my desk, and found this book, this item on the right. There was a book that Johnnie Fern had given to my grandmother, and there was a note. She inscribed it inside. This book contains information relating my early ancestors, McDill, Robertson, who were lawyers of the 19th century, also Davis. It's actually my grandmother's writing there. For my Aunt Vonia, I hope it will help you in your search, or help in your search for who we are. I love you, Johnnie Fern. And that's a picture on the left. It's not very clear, but back in the day when you took a picture, you didn't always know how it was going to turn out. But Grandma with Johnnie Fern. And as it happens, there was a drawing of the slipper tucked inside that book as well. It was kind of a funny little thing to find. Here she is a little bit older in life. This is her with my sister Nancy. My sister Nancy was 10 years old in this picture, and my cousin Michael. So it's kind of funny. She continued to grow. She talks about that in this article here. We use the term midget in our family, not to be insensitive, but Johnnie Fern called herself a midget. And she says in this article, I'm not even a midget anymore. I'm just a little old person. She kept growing into her 50s so that she was more than 4 feet tall. So anyway, she is my half first cousin once removed, in case any of you are wondering where this is going to fit in. All right, moving on then. Fleta May, divorced from her second husband. She marries husband number 3 on the 26th of April in 1908. Yeah.
After that video, your screen is no longer visible.
Oh, wow. That was okay. Sorry. Thank you. In that case, I will hit the present and share screen and the slides. Let's go with the window and here and share. And is that better, Tanner?
Yeah, it fixed it. It's a StreamYard issue, so no worries.
Yeah, no, sorry about that, everyone. I wanted to make sure I was using the right PowerPoint. So this morning I backed out, re-downloaded the original one that was sent to me and didn't take that video out. So should have seen that one coming, I suppose. Yeah, so this is what I was talking about. This is the image with Johnnie Fern and Grandma. This is that book where she leaves the note that I had just found that a week and a half ago or so. So I thought I would put it in the presentation here. And then here she is, my sister Nancy on the left, the 10-year-old, and my cousin Michael. And then here's the article. They had an article when she was in Hemet, talking about how she continued to grow even into her 50s. So I think this catches us up. So in April 1908, she marries George Williams. So this is Fleta May's third husband. And the date is important on this one because 3 months later, George is going to be killed. Here's his death certificate. This is his principal cause of death is gunshot wound. Grandma had told the story and had written the story down, in fact, but had told me the story that while George was cutting across some property, it was dusk. There were bushes around, and the neighbor thought that there was an animal in there that he could shoot and kill and eat, and accidentally shot and killed George, and shot into the bushes and accidentally shot and killed him. When I was looking at the newspaper article for that, I learned it wasn't quite as innocent as the family tradition was. So can't always believe family traditions, but it says that George Williams was shot and killed near Galloway last Wednesday. And the particulars are George Williams went to Frank's house a short while before the tragedy. Mrs. Franks was doing some work in her garden, and she reported that Williams insulted her and went to her husband, who was a carpenter and was engaged at work on a house not far away, and reported to him what Williams had done. The husband secured his pistol and went in search of the man who had mistreated his wife and found him going along the road. The outraged husband at once opened fire on the man as he began to run. Williams' dead body was found next morning, and Franks gave himself up to Deputy Sheriff Alvin Baker. And so, again, there was some truth to the story. He was shot and killed, but not nearly as innocent, it would seem. But I don't. One thing I haven't done from a research perspective is to figure out what happened to Mr. Franks, actually, John Franks. So, having said that, Fleta May was already expecting, and George Williams Jr. was born in 1908. So she continued with her family here. And then between his birth in August and 1910, the family left Walker County, Alabama, and moved to Wolf, Seminole County, Oklahoma. So this is Fleta May with her parents, William Thompson Davis and Lucinda Elizabeth Cooner was her maiden name, the mom and dad. And then here she is. They do something kind of weird in the census with her last name. It's kind of hard to know, but Mary Fleta with her 3 children, Clarence, Flora, and George, all with different last names. So quite a spectacular entry. So I don't know if any of you have a guess as to what Fleta May is going to do next, but I think there's a bit of a pattern here. She's going to marry who I think of as the bravest man in the world, to be honest. Her 4th husband, his name was Sam Robertson, and this is my great-grandfather. He was from Oklahoma and from Missouri. So they get married. Let's talk about Sam then for a little bit. So this is Grandma's dad, David Samuel Robertson. He was the son of Daniel Fetters Robertson and Mary Lucinda Smedley. This is a picture of them in Oklahoma territory around 1899. I put a little red circle around my great-grandpa, Sam. His father, Daniel Fetters, he worked in zinc and lead mines in Missouri, and the dust from the mining got into his joints and started to cripple him. It's a family that grew up incredibly poor, as you'll see from a few of the pictures. Daniel Fetters was also 16 years older than Mary Lucinda, quite a bit older than her. The other person I want to point out is little Rosie right here. She has those intent eyes, looking at the camera, a hairstyle that sort of reminds me of Gretel from The Sound of Music. When in about 5 years from here, she's going to be standing at the stove and a coffee pot is going to explode and blind little Rose, actually. And she ended up marrying Sid Hudson, who was blind from a work-related accident as well. And I remember Grandma telling me that Rose could always seem to know what color dress she was wearing somehow, and it just amazed her. So sometimes you see those photos and life isn't going to stay the same. This is that family, though. In 1900, there's David Samuel as an 11-year-old. And this is in Pottawatomie County, Oklahoma, which shares a border with Seminole County. All right. This is Daniel Fetters and Mary Lucinda sort of later in life. You can see on the left, kind of the crude wooden shack that they're living in with the corrugated tin roof. He's in a wheelchair now, and his knuckles are swollen. Here, just before he died in 1926, you can see how crippled he is. And Mary Lucinda actually is still quite young. He was born in 1850 in Gilmer County, Virginia, which ended up West Virginia, actually, and lived in Indiana and Iowa and Missouri before coming over to Oklahoma. But they had David Samuel Robertson right here, young man Sam. And again, you've seen the marriage record with Fleta and Sam. This is the only image we have of them together, and it was something of a miracle to have this, to be quite honest. And I'll tell you that story in a little bit. Together, Sam and Fleta, they have 5 children. They have, this is on the right-hand side here, this is D, or Daniel Fetters Jr., and then Uncle Ode. Everyone called him Ode. And then here's Grandma holding a baby, who I'll explain in a moment. And then Aunt Vera and Uncle Jack. We always called him Uncle Jack. Family members called him Sammy, but they didn't want to call him Junior, I guess. So anyway, so this is them. This is them later Here's Uncle Jack. You'll notice, by the way, he's not quite all there. Uncle Jack served in the Pacific in World War II and had his leg essentially shot off by a Japanese soldier. He was able to get the bayonet off of that soldier's gun, and he gave it to my dad for a time. My dad had it in his dresser drawer, and every once in a while would pull that out. But Uncle Jack liked to play tricks with the leg. If people weren't expecting it, he'd have a leg on, his prosthetic leg on, and then he would take it off just to scare kids. And then here's Aunt Vera, and then here's Grandma, and here's Uncle Ode right here. So what's sort of interesting, when Grandma is born in 1917, a lot of people have a hard time saying her name. It's just Vonia, but you'll notice it looks like it's written Vonia Elizabeth Robinson, and they were Robertsons, but it happened that way, that those names can get confused quite a bit. There's a lesson there, actually. Then in 1920, about as normal as this family was going to end up looking, you have Sam and Fleta, and then here's Clarence, Flora, and George. They're still at home. And then you have Dee, again, kind of a trouble with that initial there in the census. Uncle Ode, Grandma, and Vera. Uncle Jack wasn't born yet. So, but 3 years later, Grandma would describe it as they had gone fishing, and she said that their mother was bitten by a mosquito carrying encephalitis. So for the longest time, we thought she died of encephalitis. But her death certificate here says she's 38 years old now, or 36. If that's true, then she's born in August of 1888, and she marries in 1899. She would be 10 to 11 years old with that first marriage. About the oldest she seems to get to is 1884, it seems. But turns out that she died of erysipelas. So Grandma, at the age of 6, lost her mother. And erysipelas is a skin infection. It's the kind of thing that still exists. All she really needed to live was penicillin. So it's an example of the blessing of penicillin to us. Sam then, with father of 5 of his own children, what is he going to do? He's going to get married again. So about a year later, he marries Bertha Hodge. Now, Bertha was previously married to a fellow by the name of Jim Ham, and she had 3 children with Jim. And then that's them in the 1920 census. And then together they have Norma Jean in 1925. And there are a few pictures. It's one of my favorite pictures of Grandma sitting there holding Norma Jean in that chair on the left with that cut. And Norma Jean, she barely passed away, I think, last year or the year before, and the last one of all of the siblings to pass away. Now, almost 2 years to the day of the marriage, Birchie, as she was known, was undergoing a goiter operation, and describes it here in the paper. But undergoing a goiter operation, and she dies of a cerebral embolism on the operating table. So, and it talks about the services for here. I know Grandma wasn't a massive fan of Birchie, to be honest, is what she said. She wasn't very nice, but anyway, here's a picture of the family right around that time. This would be when Daniel Fetters died. So to kind of give you an idea, this is Flora right here with their daughter Erlene. Here's Uncle Ode. This is a Robertson cousin right here. And then here is Mary Lucinda, the wife of Daniel Fetters. This was Grandma's grandmother, who played an important role. She has Johnnie Fern on her lap, who is the Munchkin. And then Aunt Vera and Uncle Jack, who will lose his leg. in the war. And then Grandma, who's holding Norma Jean. And then you have Dee here, the oldest of the 5 of Sam and Fleta's kids. This is a Smedley cousin right here. And then here's great grandpa, Sam Robertson. And I had this picture for quite a while. We had installed some new photo scanners in the library. We have a thing called Memory Lane now, which has fantastic photo scanners for capturing memories. And I asked my mom to send me a few photos that I wanted to test it out. And she sent me this photo, and I thought, wait a minute, I've seen this photo before, but something was different, right? So when you compare the two, so I'm looking at this and I realized that Skeeter out here, somebody had cut Skeeter out of the photo. So sometimes when you think you're seeing the whole picture, you're not always seeing the whole picture. And to me, it's a lesson that when they're taking a picture and they tell you to scoot together, you better scoot together. Because if you don't, they might just cut you out of the photo. As it was, Sam now is widowed twice, a widower twice. So I don't know if any of you have any guesses as to what Sam's going to do next. But Sam then marries a year later. He marries Cora Christian Stone. Now, Christian was Cora's maiden name. Stone was her name from a previous marriage. She had previously been married to Frank Stone, and together she had had 3 children with Frank. And Jacqueline, Buddy, and Stoney. So, and then together, Cora and Sam, they have Uncle John. He's born in 1927. Here he is in Cushing, Oklahoma, in front of his auto parts store. I remember visiting as a boy. And then there's also Aunt Iris right here. I have, there are some newer pictures of her, but this is probably the best one that I have. So for those of you keeping track of Grandma's family, first we have Fleta May. She marries William Skates and they have Clarence. And then she marries George Herbie and they have Flora. Then she marries George Williams and they have George Jr. After he's killed. And then she marries Sam Robertson and they have Dee, Ode, Vonia, Vera, and Uncle Jack. Now, after she dies, Sam marries Bercha and they have Norma Jean together, but she had been previously married and had Cecil, Vera, and LT. And then she dies and Sam marries Cora and they have Uncle John and Aunt Iris, but she had been previously married. And you have Jacqueline and Gilbert and Roland. So I don't know if you were keeping track, but as a boy and doing family history with my grandma, I remember asking her, "Hey, Grandma, how many brothers and sisters did you have?" And she would say, "There are 17 of us." So quite the spectacular family for Grandma to have all of those siblings, and she thought all of them as her siblings. So we're up to 1929 with Aunt Iris being born. There is Sam. He was a constable in Wolf Township, Seminole County, and this is a picture of him there. I found this article in Newspaper Archive out of Wewoka, where the county seat is, and in Seminole County, and a crazy story about this Virgil Trammell. It turns out that there was a man who learned that his wife was in a hotel room with another man, Virgil, and so this was C.C. Wilson. He asked Grandpa to go check on his wife in that hotel room. He brought a fellow by the name of Raymond Raper with him, who was just a truck driver. But when it says here, opening the door of the room upon Trammell and Mrs. Wilson, Raper and Robertson were greeted by a fusillade of shots. Raper was killed instantly and Robertson was wounded critically. Sam recovered from that, but as I understand it, this was motivation for him to join the Masons And he joined the Masons in part because the Masons had built a home for children in Guthrie, Oklahoma, north of Oklahoma City. We have this other fantastic article. Sam was a primitive Baptist, as was my grandma was Baptist. But they were primitive Baptists from Alabama, the Davises were. And so on November 18th, 1929, Sam arrests 27 people for dancing on Sunday. Says, is it against the law to operate a public dance hall on Sunday? That's the question that Constable Sam Robertson of Wolf Township is asking, which he proposes to give a fair test in the courts. So he arrested them for disturbing the peace. And it says it includes the men and women of the orchestra who were furnishing the music. So you can see how devout Sam was. This next photo of Sam is about 3 weeks later. I'm not sure why he's watching these people sort onions, but it was around this time that he heard about a poker game that was going on nearby at a drugstore. So he goes to investigate the poker game. The guard of the poker game had stepped away, came back, saw Sam there, who wasn't going to arrest them, but he was going to cite them and ask them to appear in court. But Otis Lackey, the poker game guard, shot Sam, hit him in the wrist, and then shot him in the back and went through his torso and killed Sam. As it was, Sam, he didn't die right away. They grabbed him. An ambulance came and was taking him to the hospital. And in fact, they were taking him to the hospital in Maud, Oklahoma. When I was visiting in Maud in 2014, I think it was, I asked if the old hospital might still be standing, and they gave me the address. And it's now a home, but this was the old Maud Hospital in 1929. He lived for about 8 hours and passed away at 1 or 2 in the morning. But the family was able to come say goodbye. The death certificate here is for Sam, and it indicates his cause of death: gunshot wound in abdomen received while arresting some criminals. There's one other piece to the story. As the ambulance was racing from Wolf to Maud, it mentions here in the paper, right here, Robertson was removed to the store owned by C.F. White at Wolf. An ambulance was summoned from Seminole en route the wounded man. With the wounded man, the ambulance was turned over, and a passing car carried the victim to the Maud Hospital, where he died about 2 o'clock Wednesday morning. So pretty rough one there, but it's a very tender for me anyway to think about Grandma as a 12-year-old girl now running up the steps, hoping that her father is going to live. And so anyway, there we go. So he's buried here in Wolf Cemetery. There's also this little bit here where he's on the Oklahoma Law Enforcement Officers Memorial for the year 1928. You can see how rough being a law officer just in 1928 alone was, actually. But so as a result, when I was in Wewoka and visiting, here's the courthouse. They were kind enough to let me go back and explore some of the records. I was curious about a trial for Otis Lackey, who was the shooter. And also there's a probate document or a guardianship file document with the kids being listed, those who were minors at the time. And so fascinating document there. Otis was charged with his death. Something of a heartwarming article here. It says that more than 1,000 people were at his funeral when he passed away. The Masonic Lodge number 106 of Maud had charge of the funeral services, and Reverend Brister of the Baptist Church of Bowlegs. I don't know if any of you know where Bowlegs, Oklahoma is, but that's where Dee lived. Anyway, there wasn't really a trial, though. Otis Lackey, he pled guilty to the murder he was sentenced to life in the penitentiary on January 30th of 1930. So justice moves a little bit quicker. Babe Doolin, who was also involved and helped Otis escape, and who was one of the poker game players, the charges were dismissed against him. So yeah, so Otis got life, and boy, they said some things about him that you wouldn't necessarily see in the paper today, I suspect. For example, the paper says Lackey, about 35 years old, is a medium-sized man of sallow complexion and appears to have some foreign blood, as if that were the reason why he did what he did. So I was back here presenting, and an excellent genealogist, Billy Stone Fogarty, asked me if I had requested via public records the prison record of Otis, and I had not. So she was kind enough to request that for me, and I received this email. I didn't expect to see what I saw, but she sent me Otis's prison record, and it caught me off guard a little bit. He was, I don't know a lot about his background other than he had been in prison before. He was illiterate, and just a little bit about him. And he did things in prison that I'm afraid tend to happen to people in prison. But anyway, with that in mind, Cora, wife number 3, she actually lived until 1997, which, considering everything, seems a little bit spectacular. Now, Grandma then, Cora, not being able to take care of these children, remember there aren't different social programs and things that might have helped her nowadays. Cora, or Grandma, ended up going to the orphanage in Guthrie, the Masonic Home for Children. You can see in the 1930 census, which I believe is in February, that she is, actually it's probably June, I take that back. But, and in fact here it says July 24th, 1930. She's an inmate along with Uncle Jack and Aunt Vera and Aunt Norma Jean. She's an inmate at the Masonic Home for Children. So with all of those marriages, and I believe the total number is 9 marriages, she still ends up as an orphan. An interesting thing in the census, it was misindexed. And here she is. It was misindexed as Vonide, Vonide, in part because of a mistake down here. So again, you kind of see where sometimes indexing mistakes can happen. But another lovely picture of Grandma when she enters the orphanage at the age of 13. And this is a roster from the orphanage. As it turns out, so she was there. Her birthday was March 26, 1917. She entered the orphanage February 25th, 1930, and she left the orphanage on July 12th, 1935, when she was 18 and the school year had finished. And you'll notice, too, that actually Uncle John and Aunt Iris in 1937, they end up in the orphanage as well, as Cora wasn't able to take care of them. Grandma loved her time in the orphanage, actually. It was nice. I mean, I'm sure she would have rather not been there, but they had an indoor swimming pool. This is what it looks like from a yearbook, a booklet that I have from Grandma. Here are their pictures. Grandma down here on the lower left, Aunt Vera and Uncle Jack on the upper right, and Aunt Norma Jean here on the lower right. This is a picture I took. What's left primarily is this main home, and it's used kind of as a reception type hall. She talked about walking to Guthrie, Oklahoma High School, which is still there. It was built in 1924. And then she leaves the home in 1935. This is what she looked like at that time. Skeeter and Nellie, they come out from California. So kind of in true Okie Okie tradition, I suppose, or the situation with the Dust Bowl. She was in the home during the Oklahoma Dust Bowl, and her family went out to Southern California. So true Okies. And so she went out there with them. I love that Skeeter is pumping up the tire for the trip back to California. And then this was the trunk they gave her with her things that my Uncle Ed down in San Diego, actually, it was all torn up and broken. And so he finally got rid of it a few years ago. So down in California, Grandma, she meets a divorced man by the name of Merle Poffenberger. And they meet here. He's working in Balboa Park during the Pan Pacific Exposition that was there from 1935 to 36. And he's working in this hamburger stand right here. And that's where they meet, and they take off to Yuma over on the California-Arizona border to get married. And then here they are in 1940 at Ocean Beach. There they are with my dad, who was born in 1937, Robert. And a couple pictures of them. Here they are at my parents' wedding. Here they are standing outside of the home they built out in Spring Valley, California, with Dad and Uncle Edwin, and then another one later in life, Uncle Edwin and my dad over here on the right with Grandma. And kind of the last picture we have of them together anyway in 2008. What was kind of fascinating is they brought this cake to the home, the assisted living home that she was in, and with the 91st birthday. But Grandma's memory had been, when she was 82, her short-term memory completely went away on her, and she got angry with them because she let them know that she was not 91, that she was 82. When we visited her as well in 2008, so the one thing that I remember when I gave Grandma a hug is that she still smelled like Grandma. I don't know how to describe it, but very good, faithful person. Here's where she's buried in Escondido, California. So what? I've told you this crazy story. It has, everything to do, really a lot to do with who I am. And as I said, why I'm a genealogist, because it's the thing that we did together. But what does it mean for all of you? Well, for me, the memories that I have of this, with Grandma and the photos and things, are precious. And one great way to preserve these is through FamilySearch Memories, just on FamilySearch.org. You have the Memories tab right there. These are some photos that I've put up with Grandma at different times in her life. You'll notice that you can organize them into various folders, and this is the Vonia Robertson folder that I have. And there are a variety of ways. Again, this won't be a way to show you how to do it, but I'll show you some resources in a moment. We were looking kind of the thumbnail view. You can click on this camera up here and it will show you the photo view. You can also record stories. These can be just text type stories. And you can have documents connected to her as well. And you can even record audio. I have a little bit of audio of Grandma's voice on a video of my brother's. I have my sister. She has a cassette tape, I believe, with Grandma singing, which I'm hoping to be able to get a copy of at some point because I would love to hear her voice again. But I've been able to do things like this. She wrote a poem about Dad. She loved to write, Grandma. I won't take the time to read it there, but it's up in FamilySearch Memories, and there's a picture of my dad. There's also this, what we consider kind of a miracle in our family. This is Lucinda Smedley. As I mentioned, she was 16 years younger than Daniel Fetters Robertson when they married. She said she didn't want to be a burden on her family. So when he died in 1926, She remarried a fellow by the name of Bill Gwynn. This is them in the 1930 census. And then she married Jim Powell. And this is them in the 1940 census. The grandma described Jim Powell as abusive, how people could hear him yelling from a distance away. Well, by 1940, Grandma was in California. Some of the family were still back in Oklahoma. But when Grandma was a little girl, after her mom died, and when Birchie died, she would go and stay with her grandma. And Grandma had this, Lucinda had this peach-colored vase that Grandma coveted, I guess, and she wanted. And my grandma, Vonia, would ask Mary if she could have the vase. And Mary said when she was old enough to take care of it. Well, life goes on. And again, Grandma Vonia, she's in California. And Mary here is in Oklahoma. And as she's getting ready to pass away, she is sick and in the hospital. And Jim didn't bother to tell the family, but Uncle Ode went to visit her and found out that she was in the hospital. Otherwise, we wouldn't have known, at least immediately when she passed away. But as it was, her things, no one really knew what happened to the few things that she had. But Flora was visiting a friend in Seminole. So again, Flora is Fleta May's daughter by husband number 2. And she was visiting this friend, and she commented how this friend had a clock on her mantle. She said, my grandmother had a clock like that. And she said, well, I got this from this man who was selling a couple boxes of things for $5 a piece. And so the friend goes and grabs these boxes, and 2 of the things that were in the box were the picture that we have of Fleta May and Sam together. And some Flora paid for $5 a piece to her friend to take the boxes, a few things that were family heirlooms for us. One was the photo, one was the peach vase, and Grandma, as she wrote the story and I transcribed it and put it in FamilySearch Memories, she started to cry when she saw that she could have this keepsake from her grandmother. And now it's my sister Tracy, who's the oldest granddaughter, has it. So a place to record these kinds of things that happen in the family. Another precious one to us is that my dad, before he passed away, wanted to tell his story. I was able to get some audio of Dad talking. So even though he's been gone for 14 years now, I can click and hear Dad's story whenever I would like. Here's a picture, for example, of Mom and Dad just before he passed away. And I have a little clip of Dad talking about his mother, actually, that I'll play for you.
Another thing I remember about my youth is my mom loved to sing. Whenever she liked to sing, "You Are My Sunshine." And there was a bunch of little songs that she'd always be singing. I asked her about my voice. She said, "Well, it's good that you like to sing."
And it's true. Dad had a horrible singing voice, actually. It startled my wife to be, actually, when she first heard it. But he would sit in his recliner singing country songs. But Grandma loved to sing, and I can remember her singing "You Are My Sunshine." So what I want you to know is you have resources to preserve memories. This is a little video clip. I'm going to let it kind of lead the way. I know we're right at the top of the hour, but I'll stick around for any questions. But this should give you some ideas of how you can then take some of the memories you have, or hopefully motivate you to record some of these memories before they're gone. Because that story, that with my dad talking, 2 weeks later, Dad wasn't able to talk anymore. And that's what makes that memory and his voice all the more precious to us. So. All right, let's see.
All right, let's say that you were inspired by this presentation I just gave and not scared off of family stories.
Tanner, can people hear that okay?
Yeah, I can hear it.
I know it's low. Sorry about that. It's a little faint, so do your best, I hope.
And you would like to add some of your memories, whether they be photos or audio or documents or stories. This class wasn't designed to teach you all of that, but there are excellent resources available for you on FamilySearch. So if you're at the FamilySearch homepage for you, if you come over here to, in the upper right corner, to this question mark with a circle around it, and you click on Help, a pop-up box will appear, as you can see. And I would suggest starting with the Help and Learning Center. So I'm going to click on Help and Learning. And when I do, the Help and Learning Center will appear. You can see that Memories is an option, and there will be lots of articles that discuss how to, I'll click on this, how to add memories, how you can deal with some questions you might have about images, and are images restricted, and what various things do I need to know about help with memories. You can also search for whatever questions you have here. So that's an excellent resource. The other thing you can do as you scroll down, let's say you are a visual or hearing type learner, as you scroll down, you can choose some help resources. So again, there's help by topic or location in the research wiki. The FamilySearch blog has helpful articles and tips. The Learning Center has classes. This also mentions classes and videos and community and one-on-one help. So in this case, I'm going to click on classes and videos. And when I do, you'll see that there are online webinars that you can attend for free. So you can see if there's something going there. There are some fantastic classes that are part of Roots Tech in the live and recorded classes, and those classes will stay available for, I want to say, about 3 years, but for quite a while. And then we also have a YouTube channel with helpful videos. So just I would encourage you to choose these and find things that will that are the best way that you learn. I'll click on find a video. There's some audio there. Let's pause that. And there are a number of stories. Now, if you're going to search, say, specifically for classes on memories, I would avoid that search. I would use this magnifying glass here in the middle. And if I type in memories here, then you'll find classes on how you can add photos and stories as well. So hopefully you find those helpful.
All right. That's everything. I hope you've enjoyed the class. I hope it's been I'm sure it's probably been educational in a few ways, but anyway, I would just encourage you again to preserve those memories, and especially while you can. You can also use the Memories app on your phone. There's both for Android and for Apple or iOS. I do that periodically. I record a story, or when I'm around some of the older members of the family, I'll record a story of them talking. Sometimes I don't tell them. It's a bit sneaky, but I want to capture their memories. So there we go.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that awesome presentation, Dan. We will now have time to answer some questions that you might have. I will give everyone time to type their questions into the comment section of wherever they're joining us from. And whether you're on YouTube or Twitter or wherever, those comments will actually come through here, and we can answer them. While you're typing those, the next class that the FamilySearch Library will be teaching will be Forgotten Wives, Mothers, and Spinsters, Tracing Women in the U.S. That will be September 5th at 10 a.m. So we hope to see you there. We hope you can view our upcoming webinars at our Family Search Library classes and webinars page, which I'm going to go ahead and post into the chat. We also have a bit.ly link that we use to get feedback. So if you could go ahead and just give us feedback whenever you head out, that would be very helpful for us. So I'm going to go ahead and post the link to that in the chat as well. While I'm doing that, there's a question that came through by Kat. She says, when adding photos of living people, are they automatically blocked and released after their death? Do you need to mark them as private? If they are marked as private, will anyone ever be able to view the memories?
My understanding, if they're marked as private, is that they will not be viewable after you're gone. But I would need to double check that one, since I tend to mark most as public. Certainly for living people. The curious thing about that, if a photo has some deceased and some living people in them, then searching, and it's a public photo, then people searching for the deceased person can see the photo and see the living people, but shouldn't see the tag on that living person. And so if it's just someone who's living and doesn't involve deceased people at all, when the account holder passes away, then all of that should be made public after that. For anything that is public, but I believe private things are restricted. But I'll confess, I would have to double check, but I'm fairly confident in that answer.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, maybe in like 200 years, they'll be like, okay, this person died for sure, and just release it. But that, I don't think there's a plan right now or a process beyond what you said. Marilyn says, does memories allow a person to change the order of photos and other information added to an ancestor's memory section?
So I would have to play around with that one. I know that I've tried to change the order, and part of me wants to just go live on that one to see what it lets us do. So I'm going to go over there, Tanner, if you want to fire off another question while I'm making sure I can get into it, and we'll play around with that for a moment.
Okay. There's a question on YouTube. May I add my friends and unfamiliar people to genealogy trees?
So there are a way to add unconnected people. I would say the biggest thing to be aware of is just, if you're adding a living person, you've got to mark them as living. But you can add unattached people. If you go to Family Tree, and I'll click on Tree here, and then go to Find, or actually I think it's Recents, so forgive me. It's going to be under Recents. If you go down here, you can add an unconnected person. Growing up, the lady across the street, Keating, I called her as a boy, Marie Louise Keating. She was like my grandmother. We would go on Saturday walks and drink Hires root beer together. She bought me my first bike. So that is someone that we have added to the tree, and has since been connected up to other family members. And again, it was after she was deceased, but I guess to sort of explain how, yeah, absolutely, it can be done. But we do want to be very careful to make sure that we know whether someone or not is deceased or not before we mark them as deceased. Otherwise, we should err on the side of caution, I would say, and mark them as living. So coming to Grandma's album here. And by the way, you can share photos. I'm not sure that it's going to let me move it this way. Oh, reorder. Sorry. There we go.
So could you share your screen and show where that the button
Oh,
is?
sorry. So yeah, absolutely. I think I'm sharing my screen and I'm not. Here we go. Thank you. All right, so let me back up here. So you didn't miss much. I was just signing into Family Tree because I hadn't signed on yet. So what I demonstrated before was Tree, the Tree tab with my own tree here, and then Recents. And down at the bottom is where you can add an unconnected person right there. And then the other thing you can do is with memories. First, I came to the overview, and we'll trust that that's a short-term thing there. Perhaps we'll try gallery this time. There we go. And it has just a variety of things that I've added through the years. But if I go to some of the photos, there you can see another photo of Johnnie Fern and some family members. Right up here across the top, there's a reorder option right here. And so if I click reorder, then it allows me to drag and move the photos into a particular order. So yeah, that can be done. I hope that's what you meant as far as the order goes.
Yeah, I think that was good. I think we hit all the questions. There's lots of glowing praise in the chat. Lots of people said they loved the story and the presentation. If I did miss anyone's question, please go ahead and repost it. It might have just gotten buried in the scrolling, but I think we hit them all. So again, if you guys would please fill out the bit.ly survey, which I will just post into the chat again. So we really do read all of that. We hope to see you at our next webinar on September 5th. And then there will be another one called Overview of Family Search on September 12th. So let's see. Julia Woodall on Facebook says, can you delete a photo from memories?
You can. Yeah, absolutely you can. So, well, it needs to be your photo. You can't delete the photo that's a photo that someone else contributed. You'd want to work with them on that. But any photo that you contribute, you should be able to delete. And I would share my screen again and show you that. But for whatever reason, this is kind of embarrassing timing-wise. Every time I click on a photo to look at the details of the photo and where you would see the delete button in the column on the right-hand side, it just is struggling to bring that up. But I'm sure that's a system issue that they'll figure out that there's a problem there and get it fixed. So. But yes, you can delete your own photos, and I've done that too. Sometimes I've contributed photos more than once. My family's been kind enough to trust me with a lot of the photos, which I need to get out to them. But I'm scanning them, and I've realized that there's a photo in there maybe 2 or 3 or 4 times. Then I'll save the best one, the best to scan, and delete the others. So.
Yeah. Carol asks, why would you add a non-related person to your family tree?
So there can be a variety of reasons, but it's a good one. I would say it's something you do on a somewhat limited basis, but again, Keating or There was another friend of mine as a teenager who she wanted help with her family tree. And Judy, I'll talk about Judy Palmer. So she wanted help with her family tree, and I wanted to help her put it together. So as a living person, I went and added her so that at some point when we talked and when we met, I could add her and then even say her living parents until we could connect that tree into deceased people, so that when we talked about it, we had some living people. We had the connection from her rather than starting with, say, her grandparents or some deceased relative. She could sort of see her tree from her own perspective, as an example.
Yeah. Awesome. So that was all the questions. So thank you everyone for coming. Yeah, lots of really high praise in the chat. But thank you so much for attending, and we hope to see you at our next webinar. And have a good rest of your day. See you guys later.
Okay, thank you.